Actually, when I was editing last week's episode, I was like, man, I'm fucking hungry, and I had this leftover burrito, and I opened it and I set it right here next to the computer here while I was editing, and I ended up throwing it out. Like, I'm not fucking kidding. Like, I was like, what was I thinking I could eat while I was recording this?
Yeah. Just thinking about all of the classic Tom and Jerry high drinks going on in that man's stomach.
It's itchy and scratchy in there, man.
Yeah. And not poochy. To mention the 14-month-old baby and all of the human feces he also ate.
Hey everybody, it's us. We're back. We're the History Boys. Me, I'm Chris Whedon, history boy and alcoholic.
Hi, I'm Tyler Armentrout. I'm a history boy, and I have a pretty bad opioid addiction.
My name's Zach Mack, and I'm also a history boy, and I'm lost.
I'm Jerry, and I am also a history boy, and I enjoy medium walks on the beach.
Just to be clear, I do have an opioid problem, but really the problem is I can't find any, man.
Yeah. Quarantine's done a number.
I have a problem with the lack of opioids in my life.
After several weeks of diarrhea and constipation and shaking, I'm over it and I'm ready to get back in the game.
Well, you know what they say, God hates a quitter.
It's true.
So what's going on? What are we doing today?
Yeah, Jerry.
So today we're talking about a heavy hitter, one that I've kind of wanted to do since the beginning of recording this podcast.
Is it Napoleon?
No. We'll do Napoleon later. Just you wait.
What about George Washington?
No.
Dude, we're obviously doing Glenn Danzig.
No.
Yeah.
So we're not doing George Washington Carver?
No.
Yeah.
The guy who murdered George Washington?
No, we're doing Attila the Hun.
Oh, heck yeah.
Who's that?
Attila the Hun. So being one of the most bloodthirsty, infamous, and least understood figures in history, Attila the Hun's empire would stretch from the western border of the Caspian Sea. This is like modern-day Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, like the northern border of the Black Sea, including modern-day Romania, Hungary, Ukraine, Moldova, north into the Balkans, and as far west as the North Sea, and some maps have Denmark on there too. I don't know how accurate that is, but the borders of it sort of being the Rhine and the Danube rivers.
Oh, so they got the guys with the stones and the guys with the waltz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The blue waltz.
Sure. Now, building this empire would sink the final nails into the dying Western Roman Empire and leave Europe awash in blood for generations. All of this in a single lifetime.
Fucking metal.
And it's funny that even though this is the thing that killed Rome, Rome is still the only thing anyone ever wants to talk about. It's always Roman aqueducts and like fucking Roman fucking, centurions and whatnot.
Look
at these guys. They killed Jesus. It's like, who cares? Get over it.
Okay, so I think that we should blame Russell Crowe for that. If it wasn't for Gladiator, we wouldn't be talking about Rome.
When we did, that's not the case, but when we did Boudica, that was kind of like Rome's heyday. Mm-hmm. That was the early years, decades of the Roman Empire.
The growing pains, one might say.
Yeah, the Julio-Claudians. This is like the very end.
Oh.
So
this is geriatric Rome that we're talking about.
Yeah. Now, the origins of the Huns are still not well known, with many in their respective fields discussing it vehemently to this day. But most agree, though, that they originated in Central Asia, being related to a steppe people called the Xiongnu, or Hyongnu. it's a whole thing. People still discuss it to this day. They're most likely, this is sort of where they came from. They came from this tribe, the Shamnu. Whether they were Scythian, Turkic, or even some believe the descendants of Noah, fleeing east after the Great Flood, they had a spoken language and culture that were all their own, that were different from everyone else's.
If you believed in Noah, wouldn't you assume everybody was a descendant of Noah?
Yeah, but I don't fucking know, dude.
You're a direct descendant of Noah, and they're like, yeah, no shit. Cool.
Shouldn't all of us be? Yeah.
Right.
Also, how are you going to be a descendant of Noah and be a Slytherin? I mean, come on. You can't be a Harry, because the Harry Potter wizards aren't. There's no Christians in that world, because unless Jesus was a wizard, and like I don't even know, like gotta go on Pottermore if you want to know that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question for the Huns themselves. It is said remained isolated north of the Caucasus Mountains and east of the Kerch Strait, which is kind of between the Black Sea to the south and the Sea of Azov to the north. There's this.
Why has it got to be the Black Sea?
Jesus Christ!
I'm glad you're the one that asked it, not me.
Shouldn't it be African American Sea?
Shut up, Tyler. My God. Moving on. They were there for a great number of years, and there's a lot of legends as to how they met with the rest of Europe. You know, some legends had them being nomads. They chased a stag bitten by a gadfly or a bull bitten by a gadfly. There's a lot of them. But in any case, they crossed the Kerch Strait into Crimea and were introduced to Europe.
I do like how they're like, hey gang, there is over there a stag getting bitten by a gadfly. Let's fucking follow that.
Yeah, well, like, it ran over, like, the strait, and they followed it, and they're like, oh, there's a place here.
Yeah.
So, what the fuck is a gadfly? Like,
It's kind of like what we would call a horsefly.
Like a big ol' fly?
It's
a
full.
big
It looks
fly.
like Josh Gad.
Nice.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, cool.
Looks like celebrity music actor.
Yeah. Hollywood
Also,
heartthrob.
I like the fact that the accounts are conflicting, except for in the case of the gadfly. They're like, we know it was a gadfly.
There was a fucking gadfly.
Well,
for
there's
sure.
a couple other legends that don't have the gadfly.
Then there was the one where it was a gadfly biting a different gadfly.
Some even say that it was like this like legendary like Greek guy that his name had something to do with the Huns, and he decided he was going to depart from them, and it's this whole thing. Clearly not true. Anyway,
His name was Gadfly Doppelpopulus.
no.
And he was
Nice.
way into gadflies.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say it was way Greek.
So being a nomadic people, the staple of their diet consisted of uncooked meat placed between the saddle and the horse. So when they rode it, it would tenderize the meat, and the salt from the horse's sweat there, it would like give it some flavor, I guess.
That sounds fucking
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah, I've
mean,
had this on
Mongols
tour
do the
before.
same thing.
A little bit of meat gum.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to the stuff we were talking about last episode, that does sound pretty good.
Honestly, yes.
I'd be afraid of taking too big of a bite and biting my horse.
Jeez.
They didn't take it off the horse. I mean,
Okay.
it was so delicious, you couldn't wait.
Well, what are you gonna eat it off of? They didn't have plates back then.
Yeah, just eat it right off the
Yeah, they
horse.
did.
That's actually where the phrase "I'm so hungry I could eat a horse" comes from.
Nice.
Is that you've eaten, and the next thing you know, oh shit, I've eaten all the way down to the hooves.
How am I gonna get around now?
Oh, damn it.
Gotta get it around. Jesus. No, the Romans actually thought they were like, they don't even cook their meat. Look at these guys. They also drank fermented mare's milk,
Yep.
you know, as like their booze source. Sometimes they would even just take a cup, put it against the horse, and they would cut cut the horse, and the blood would drain into the cup, and they would just drink it.
Hot. That's super hot.
I mean,
It's gross.
better mare's milk than the boy horse milk.
Right.
Yeah. I don't want that thick, chunky boy's milk.
No.
Oh yeah, nobody does. I think my wife's a Hun.
Oh, fuck.
Jesus Christ.
They were practically born on a horse, and each of them were experts in using a modified recurve bow, which was kind of the secret to their success. It shot farther and like with more like weight to it, and it had like a short like bottom and like tall on the top, so it was easier to manipulate while you're on top of a horse. And like the thing that they could do is like they were basically an army of like trick shots that you'd see in like a circus, because like they were able to like bend backwards on a horse and shoot a bow accurately, and like several arrows at a time. They could shoot several arrows like a second, by like holding on to a bunch of them and just sort of shooting them like with their fingers. Like these guys were absolute experts. They also had a saddle that was different from most of Europe's in that it had a high front and high back, so it kind of like, you know, cemented them in place on the horse.
It was like a cod piece.
Sure, the horse
The
kind
entire
of
horse was a cod piece.
Yeah, it was like a horse-shaped cod piece that they rode around on. And
Yeah.
and one of the best tricks they did with their bows were they'd put it on the ground and pretend like they were playing the bass whenever the music was good.
It was also unclear whether or not they had stirrups, even. So they could do all this stuff on a horse with either no stirrups at all or very primitive stirrups.
They got some
You're
shitty
gonna
ass
say
stirrups.
very little stirrups. Barely any stirrups at all.
Well, just a loop, maybe. You know, like a
Sure.
little loop you'd put your foot in. Things like that.
Dude, you're just making these guys sound super cool, and I just want to hang out with them.
They're badass, man. Those step riders were the greatest horse archers that this world ever had to offer.
How are they with their step dancing, though?
Probably terrible.
As good as they were with their bass playing, as long as it was just mimicking the bass they heard on the radio when they had their bows.
So all we really know of the Huns, though, is from writers that were enemies of the Huns. Gothic writer Jordanes and Greek writer Priscus, who actually plays a pretty big part in this story.
So, was Jordan listening to a lot of The Cure?
I guess. There's gonna be a lot of those jokes. There's a lot of Gothic people
I get
in
it.
this.
Because he was gothic.
All right.
Yeah, it's a goth thing.
Did he have black nail polish?
I like to think that he did.
How big was his hair?
History is silent on
10.
how large his hair is.
10. It
10.
was like it was
Just
out of
10.
Robert Smith.
It was 10
Yeah.
hair. 10 hair.
It was.
He had 10 hair into the crow. With,
With a little Susie Sue in there.
Right, right.
Yes.
So because of this, they are portrayed as a backward people with an incomprehensible language, and to the Romans, a monstrous appearance. It was racism trying to make their enemies look as worse as they could. That's
I like
kind of
where
how
they
their
were-
propaganda worked.
or they were monsters, and the Greeks were right.
I like
I mean,
that
it's
there's
a
a
bit-
lot of these. There's a lot of these groups of people that we only know of because the Romans described them. You know, unflatteringly, and we.
Yeah.
They're clutching their pearls, being like, "Oh, they're women and tall." And I guess these ones are short, but
Yeah, how do we
they-
know it's not like that Twilight Zone where all the ugly people are the regular ones and the pretty ladies the ugly one, and the Romans were hideous. They were hideous monsters, and everybody else, they were goddamn GQ models.
I think there were uggos on both sides. They just reviled the Huns. Like, they didn't understand them. They were the first type of steppe people to come into Europe in world history, pretty much, at least with the largest impact. So they didn't understand them at all. They were completely new. So they never really totally mixed together. Not as much as the other contemporaries. Some even thought that the Huns weren't able to walk with their own 2 feet out of the saddle, because they were always on horseback, and when they would meet with the Romans, their style of diplomacy, they wouldn't get off the horse. So they thought, well, they can't even walk on their own 2 feet off the horse.
Okay. Boy, were they shocked when they were like, why don't you come down from that horse and say that to my face? And the guy was like, all right. Oh, no. He was like, I'm about to get my ass kicked by a 4-foot tall man.
I don't know if they were that short. The Huns also practiced a form of head binding. But the reasons for this are totally unknown. You guys know what head binding is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wrap it up.
It's
wrap up the head.
It's when you're a child and you wrap up your head and you bind it to have a certain shape. So like we've all like watched like Ancient Aliens. They have those like elongated skulls that they keep showing. They're like aliens, right? Well, in Europe, a lot of those are actually Hun skulls.
So they're not cone heads.
No. No. And
I'm disappointed.
Some of them weren't formed in the same way either, There were certain types of head binding, but the reason why it's unknown is because they kept their heads hidden from outsiders, because I guess it must have been a very close to their culture, and to share why they would do this to outsiders must have been a big no-no. That's why they didn't ever share it, and they always kept it covered.
Well, follow me on this dalliance really quick. Perhaps,
Here we go.
Perhaps the reason why they bound their heads were because they learned about the archery and the horseback from possibly the Greys. Yeah. And the Greys,
oh, for God's sake.
As a tribute to their Grey teachers, they bound their heads to share their aesthetic appearance.
I'm sure there's some asshole out there saying that.
So what you're saying is they weren't aliens.
He's right here.
They revered them. They revered the aliens. Because I was just gonna say, they were aliens. Come on.
History Channel, if you're listening to this, pick us up.
Ugh. Don't get your information from History Channel, folks.
What I'm
proposing.
Oh man, I was going to say if history.
Maybe everyone in all of these stories were aliens from Earth.
Oh. Yeah, like think about that. Like if we go anywhere, aren't we the aliens?
Yeah.
I suppose. I guess. They would also, at birth, they would slash the children with, like, knives and swords, like, on the cheeks, just so that their children knew from birth that they were, like, so their children could experience and endure pain before they were able to, like, live. Like they wanted them. Lesson. Yeah, like they wanted them to, like, be badass from the get-go. I don't know. They were pretty badass.
Was it because of that?
I don't know.
That alone?
Probably not.
To me, for them to slash a child's cheeks with the knives, like when they're first born, I can't help but think, is it the father or the mother that hold resentment the fact that there is a child? Because, I mean, the vagina's ruined, so, I mean, both parties aren't happy about that.
They're both, yeah. I mean, it's what happened to Tina Fey.
They each get a cheek.
They each get a cheek.
Jesus Christ.
What does that mean?
That homeless man was not her father.
Maybe he was a Hun.
Oh, for God's sake.
She got her face chopped up by a homeless guy when she was a kid.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's why she has that scar.
I never knew where she got that scar from.
Yeah, do you want to know where she got these scars? It's the reason why she's such a joker.
Jesus.
Oh boy.
I never knew that story. That's interesting.
I will say, knowing what you're telling me about teaching the child to endure great pain, when Eva and I have our son very soon, I'm going to take out a credit card in his name. I'm going to max it out, and I'm just going to keep it there. So the moment he turns 18, that's
He
his
knows
debt.
debt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Son, this is the real world. This is debt.
Welcome to the real world, jackass.
So, in about 376 AD, the emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire, Valens, I've heard it pronounced both ways, was warned that a massive migration of Goths were moving south into his empire, despite agreements already made outlining their lands and the fact that they couldn't come into our lands. They're like, hey, wait a minute. We said you can't cross the Danube. And they're like, I know. We can't cross the Danube. But listen, there's these guys chasing us, and they don't give a fuck. And they're called the Huns.
These gadflies are chasing us.
Yeah.
Did the Romans know they were coming because they could hear the Crow soundtrack off in the distance?
I mean, obviously, it was Sisters of Mercy playing, like, just all they could hear in the background.
Yeah. And, like, the Gothic tribes have been giving the Romans troubles for a long time. This kind of, like, pushed them all out against the borders, and, like, the kind of crumbling west and the better off east couldn't really handle all of them coming through. And so that's kind of, like, where we're at. Like, when we are in this story, this is kind of how... this is like the society that Attila was born into. That they're raiding these people, they're bringing them under their yoke, and they're just finding more riches and more riches the further they go into this new land.
And nobody's even trying to stop them. They're just walking right into their arrows.
Well, again, if
Yeah.
the Goths are the first line, like, prepare to get sad on both
Well, I mean,
sides, because
as-
there's not much of a fight, and
Well, I mean, as the Goths went against, the crumbling Roman auxiliaries, the Roman auxiliaries couldn't really stop them. And the Goths had to get away from the Huns. And the Huns kind of absorbed some of the Gothic tribes.
Sounds like the Romans need a wall
They do. They
to
do
keep
have
those
one.
invaders out. Oh, they have a
Yeah,
wall?
they do. Yeah, the Theodosian walls. They do.
No, those weren't.
We'll talk about those later.
But I thought walls worked to keep out the invaders, the foreign invaders.
For a
No,
while.
it only
For a
works
while.
on Mexicans.
As many of the Gothic tribes fell under Hunnic control, the Eastern Roman Empire had no choice but to pay the Huns off, while the Western Empire didn't really have the means to do so. The Huns used lightning-fast guerrilla hit-and-run tactics that overwhelmed the crumbling Roman auxiliaries. The Huns spread like wildfire in the late 300s and the early 400s. And the thing is the East had the money to pay them off, but that's exactly why they attacked the East and not the West. Like, the West was just sort of like whistling and like, oh, hope you don't come over here, because they don't have anything, but like, the East was kind of a cash cow, and the Huns didn't really want to kill their cash cow. Like, the more they raided, the more they would just give them, the more they would just pay them off, and they were like, this is great. Like, let's just keep doing this.
This is the reason why you don't negotiate with terrorists.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, you're right. They will take as much as they can get away with.
Yeah, my cat does that.
So does mine.
You know what I mean?
my
Like,
wife does that.
he'll be like clawing at you while you're trying to sleep, and you're like, "Fine, I'll feed you." And now you've convinced him, you've taught him that that's how he gets fed.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
It's exactly the same thing.
Chris, once again, comparing human men to animals. It's the way he lives his life. It's how he views the world. So, just pointing that out for the audience.
Attila's father, Munzuk, along with Regula, I believe his name is how you pronounce it, Rugula, and his brother
yeah.
Oktar, They
Like
all
the
kind of
lettuce.
ruled together. The three ruled together. And they had already kind of burned their way across Europe, the Caucasus, into Persia, and Asia Minor.
Isn't that illegal?
What? Asia? Oh, I understand what you're saying.
I'm just waiting for him to break into the Asia
Not
majors.
in Thailand. Yeah.
Yes.
Asia majors?
Yeah.
So when the last of the three, Rugula, died in 433 AD, he left his two nephews in charge, Bleda and his younger brother Attila, which loosely means little father, maybe. That's what most people believe. It could mean little father. So born sometime around 406, he was about 27 years old when he had joint rule of the newly founded Hunnic Empire. In 335, they invaded this place called Margus. It's in modern-day Serbia. And they forced the Roman Emperor Theodosius II to sign a treaty to double the amount of their payoff from 300 pounds of gold annually to 700 pounds of gold annually, and release any Hun captors that they may have, and of course not to enter into any alliance with any of the enemies of the Huns.
Get out your fillings.
Yeah.
The Huns had several dealings with the Eastern Roman Emperor, but this was like they had to sign a treaty, like the Treaty of Margus. That Theodosius II was straight up just like, yep, 700 pounds of gold sounds just about nice. And as they left, he kind of like tore it up. He was like, fuck them.
I'm not doing any of that shit.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I want them to come down here and try to get it.
Yeah.
Famous.
He'll regret those words.
Yeah. But, every time they'd make an alliance, they'd be like, okay. And then they'd go back and wait for their money and their hostages and stuff. And they'd do some little raids here and there. Because anything else was sort of like free game,
Like just a little bit, some minor rating,
Yeah, yeah.
They should get into major rating.
Well, we'll get to that. But the wealth and the power that it brought them seemed to be their only motivation at all. Like, they had they didn't really care about anything else other than, all the money and all the gold and stuff. Except for Attila personally, but we'll kind of get to that later. The Romans were arrogant, though. They thought highly of themselves over the barbaric invaders that they thought they wouldn't have the wherewithal to crush the once mighty Romans. That they pretty much forgot about that treaty. They tore it up, they forgot about that treaty. And so without being paid their tribute and being returned the prisoners that they were expected, Bleda and Attila broke that treaty and invaded the Eastern Empire again.
What did they expect them to do?
Right? It's true. They may have been, bloodthirsty and awful, but, they signed a treaty.
Where's our fucking gold, man?
Yeah.
That must have been 9/11 for the Romans.
It's 30... It's 30 or 40 years of 9/11 for them. In this
So every high school graduate would write a letter or write an essay about how, it affected them and
Yeah.
Oh,
how it
yes.
changed the world.
Where were you when they? I just like the fact that it's a thing where, big stick government goes after
Yep.
the little guy and says, "Here's the terms," and they go, "Okay," and then big stick guy immediately goes, "Fuck these guys! What are they gonna do about it?" And they go, "What
Yeah.
are we gonna do about it? This is what we're gonna do about it."
Well, I think
Right.
I think the Huns are what could have happened in America, because here's the big bad Romans, right? And here comes this enemy that they don't understand, except there's a bajillion of them. And they move so fast and they outflank you and they just do these hit and run tactics that you're not used to dealing with, that it's almost the opposite of what happened to American Indians. We'll sign your treaty, but I'm the guy actually holding the big stick. You think you're holding the big stick, but I'm actually holding the big stick. You just don't know it yet. Mm-hmm. You know?
Right. Well, shit, I mean, the Huns would be counting so many coups.
Right.
If that was the case.
Dude, oh my god. The coup would have been a giant problem for the Huns. There would just been too many of them. So to keep a very long story, just a sort of a long story, shit was popping off all over the place by various barbarian tribes all over the crumbling Roman Empire. We got the Ostrogoths, that's Eastern Goth. We got the Visigoths, that's Western Goth. That's all that really means. And we got the Vandals in northern Africa taking Carthage and sort of what's left in there. So it's going all over the place. It's sort of being eaten alive. But the Huns just remained the most pressing threat because even the Goths were afraid of them. And many were under Hunnic rule anyway.
I thought it was Hunnic.
Hunnic? I've heard it pronounced both ways. I've heard it pronounced Hunnic or Hunnic.
I only want it to be Hunnic so I can say, are we Hunnic or are we dancers?
Yeah. Like that song from like, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest lyrics I've ever heard in my entire life. Because
doesn't your wife listen to Taylor Swift?
Yeah. And that song has dumber lyrics. And I do, I'm not partial to any of that music. Because, quite frankly, if it ain't the Scorpions, it can suck my dick.
Hell yeah,
That's
brother.
the most dad thing you've ever said.
I like rock and roll, man.
Well, he's got one on the way.
Yeah.
I like rock and roll, man.
Dude, there's nothing wrong with the squirps. There's always the winds of change, you know?
Yeah.
The
The
ballad.
only ones I care about.
But, okay, I have a serious question, though. Like,
Yeah.
I hear about the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths and the Vandals. Where are the Cybergoths at? Well, and their giant trip pants.
Oh, man.
You know,
North.
that's a good question. There's a lot of people I'm actually leaving out. There's the Allens. There's yeah.
Alan!
Were they all called Tim?
No.
They got polo shirts and they work in the mall.
A truce was reached between the Huns and Theodosius II again, but like always, the Eastern Empire failed again to pay the increased tribute. So raiding began again until another treaty was signed with another increased tribute in 443. So every time, like, the Eastern Empire, like, lost, and they're like, okay, stop. They're like, give us more gold. And they're like, okay. And they wouldn't pay. And then they would come in again. And they'd be like, stop. We'll pay even more. And they're like, okay. And then they would leave. But they would just never pay. They didn't have, like, as much gold, I think, as what the Huns wanted.
You know, if they'd stuck with the initial
Yeah.
treaty, maybe they would have been fine.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, and interest wasn't a thing yet.
Right.
Right.
It's just...
No,
I was just
no,
going
you
to
go.
say, it's just the original amount of money that you, like, settle on, you know? There's no interest yet.
Yeah. The Huns accumulated wealth at an astonishing rate. By raiding and sacking cities, they amassed giant piles of booty.
Nice.
Ooh,
And money.
dead ass.
They started enjoying the finer things the Romans had to offer, like baths, gold and silver dinnerware, wine, and bread.
I mean, there's nothing fancier than a loaf of white bread
And a bath.
Yeah.
I like
with a big box of wine.
I like to imagine the Huns using dinnerware, frankly. They're like, oh, we don't have to just tear it apart with our hands.
Well, they
This
had
raw
wood.
meat?
They had, like, wood utensils, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Attila, as a sign of, like, Hunnic solidarity to their tradition, he only ate with wooden bowls and spoons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He actually, like, he kind of, like, wanted the wealth for his Huns, not really for himself personally.
He
Yeah.
I
wanted
thought
to
you were gonna
impress
say
his
he wanted-
neighbors.
I thought for a second that you were going to say that he wanted the wealth for his honeys.
He had many. He had
That's what he
many
called
wives.
Well,
Maybe he did.
After they invaded a town, they'd invite them all over to dinner, and they're like, "Get out the saddle steaks and the fine cookware." Like we have guests coming over, and they'd all have like V-neck sweaters and like be trying to be civil, and they just couldn't get it together. They couldn't do it right. So then they're like, "Fuck it, just kill all of them."
In 442, while raiding through Thracia against the Eastern Empire, which is modern-day Bulgaria, Turkey, Greece, kind of that area, the Huns captured a man named Zirko or Zircon. I kind of heard it more as Zircon in my source material, so I'm going to use Zircon. Zircon was a Moorish dwarf. Without a nose. His nose had been cut off. He just had 2 holes in his face. And some sort of deformity of the legs, like whether it was a club foot or something like that, we don't really know.
How old was he?
I don't really know.
Isn't this exactly how the one character in Game of Thrones is described in the books or something like that?
Oh, without a nose?
I don't know. He's like he's way uglier. He's like
Probably.
Yeah, they made him way handsome for the TV show. But
They found the-
I will say that if he's still alive, he's probably hilarious.
Who?
Zircon.
The
Xerxer. We'll get to the Hunnic sense of humor here in a minute, but
He's for sure still alive.
Bleda kept him as his court jester because he thought he was hilarious, but Attila despised him. He didn't think it was funny at all. He hated Zircon.
Humor's subjective, man.
Yeah. Tilla's a wet blanket, and Zircon is Tyler.
Some people just don't think super funny dudes are that funny, and that's their thing. You know?
Again, I'm Bleda. At one point, Zircon escaped his Hun captors, and it sent Bleda into a mad rage. And when Zircon was recaptured, Bleda demanded to know why Zircon had run away on him. And not really knowing what to say because he's nervous in front of this dude that would absolutely, cut him to bits if he answered incorrectly, Zircon told him that it wasn't because he didn't like Bleda, it was because he desired a wife, and he was not given one by Bleda. And Bleda thought that was so funny. He thought it was so funny, and he took one of his wife's attendants and gave her to Zircon.
I really like Bleda, and he's just like, yeah. If it's funny, he's into it. He doesn't give a shit.
I love
like
that
it.
so much. I'm sure Bleda also made him do like some Michael Jackson like hee hee.
I just feel like there's so many times somebody does something fucked up, and I'm just like, it was pretty funny. I'll let it slide.
And you know
relate
that
to that.
attendant had just like totally fucked up somehow, and she was like, "Could this day get any worse?"
She was probably like some 15, 16-year-old girl. It's like, he's your husband now. It's like,
She's like, "I didn't even have a first husband."
You mean the dwarf with no nose and deformity of the feet, which to me would be the biggest issue.
Yeah, and Bleda makes you roll around on the stage and say funny thing. I don't know,
I'm just gonna say, Zircon could have had a worse life.
Yeah, it is true.
Also, let's talk about what the ladies really want to see. And what did his stock portfolio look like? And what were his finances, prospects?
I'm just saying you can get pretty fucking far by being funny, and I think Bleda's in the inner circle of the Huns for being hilarious. Otherwise,
He was the James Corden of his time. Just broad comedic appeal. Not very divisive. He's not alternative. It's not a Tim and Eric style scenario here. We're talking 4-quadrant, makes the whole family laugh. He does a carpool karaoke. And,
he's a real Jay Leno.
I've also heard that he's really, really nice.
Hey,
No, I've heard
Blada. Hey, Blada.
exact-
Have you heard this one? Have you heard this one, Blada? Stay tuned for Conan.
By the way, I know we rambled on this for a while, but I really like the idea that that Leno was Kevin Eubanks' slave.
Yeah.
Making him laugh. He's like, yeah,
Kevin
Kevin
Eubanks.
for me, Leno.
Yeah. Kevin Eubanks was a real Blada in that scenario.
That's the talk show I want to see, where the host
Yeah.
is like the slave of the
They're like
musical.
cracking a whip on him.
It's like funnier.
Now, the story is shrouded in mystery. But in 445, Blada died,
Oh,
leaving
Of
Attila
laughter.
the sole ruler of the Huns. Now, some say Blada died while sleeping. Some say Blada died while hunting. But the legend says that Blada and Attila were hunting together, just the two of them, and Attila killed his brother Blada to have the Huns all to himself. But no one knows.
for sure that's what happened.
I'm pretty sure he killed Blada.
Attila is as badass as the guy is. He's a fucking square piece of shit.
He's a
like,
psycho.
I don't like laughing.
He doesn't
I don't like humor. I don't like having fun. I just want to take over everything. And Blade is like, I just like having a good time, baby.
I don't know
Yeah.
about that.
No, Attila. I think Attila's the kind of guy who uses the term candy ass a lot.
Yeah, right. He's like
Completely unironically.
he's like Coach Buzzcut in Beavis and Butthead.
Or Dwayne the Rock
or Coach
Johnson.
McGurk from Coach McGurk from Home Movies is
Yeah.
how I view him.
Well, maybe.
At least he was funny.
Coach McGurk is funny and kind of lazy, but like Attila is like I feel like Attila's always yelling. You know?
Oh yeah.
okay.
Attila's sick of always busting his ass while everybody else is just dilly-dallying around, palling around, hanging out with their jesters,
Yeah. Listening to Celine Dion, you know.
staying tuned for Conan.
Celine Dion, that's great.
I couldn't think of the name of the person I actually wanted to say, so Celine Dion came out.
I like it.
So leading his Hun armies with the fabled Sword of Mars.
Cool.
Whoa.
Did he get
Yeah.
it from the
Word.
planet?
Well, so of course it's called the
Got it
Sword
from
of
the
Mars.
guy.
It's called the Sword of Mars because it comes from Greek writers, right? He probably called it something else. In any case, it was some sort of magical sword that he had that everyone was like, that sword, that's where it's at. And
That's a
like
magic
people have said
sword.
they found it a million
That sword.
times. They haven't.
Okay,
Jerry's so sick of hearing about magic swords. Sorry, Zach.
I'm sorry for cutting in, but so I listen to a lot of cheese dick power metal, and I've never heard a song titled "Sword of Mars." And like, I mean, this sounds like a Manowar track,
Doesn't it?
already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Attila
Yeah,
with the Sword of Mars. It's like
Yeah.
really badass.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
actually
I
surprised
want to
that-
be hanging out in a loincloth with my shirt off and
Yeah.
drinking mead at this point in time.
Yeah,
I mean, you'd think, but it's just it's a rapier with a fedora on it. It's like Bruno Mars the sword.
It just says "milady" every time
Yeah.
you get poked by it.
no, it was wielded by somebody who actually knew like how to use it.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. It was a regular sword wielded by a rapist. My bad.
There you go. A rapist and a murderer,
We got there.
otherwise known as a conqueror. And yeah, he invaded the Balkans. You guys know where the Balkans is, right?
Yep.
Like Yugoslavia in there.
To the east.
You know? Yeah, Yugoslavia, Serbia, kind of that area in there.
Yeah.
That's where
Croatia.
like Falkor is at, right?
The what?
Well, that's where Falkor and the Neverending Story is at by the Balkans.
I always thought they were more in the Baltics, like Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania.
Fine.
At least that's how I imagined
You're
it.
right. You're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
Baltics. Baltics,
So I thought that
Balkans,
there was-
different.
There's two
things.
slices of bread, right? There's the Baltics and the Ural Mountains, right? And they have that part of the world just sandwiched between them. That's the way I see it.
Sure, you got the armpit, you know, like you got Italy, and then the armpit next to it, you know, to the east of Italy, that's the Balkans. And then you have, you know, almost directly north, you have like modern day Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. That's the Balkans up in there. Kind of in its own armpit of Scandinavia.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
So what you're trying to say is Eastern Europe is all armpits.
All pits.
There's just
Pits all around.
It's a series of armpits. I'm sorry, our Eastern European listeners.
Best
we
armpit
do
I've
have
ever
a few.
tasted.
We do have a few. Hello, our listeners in Romania. Now, Attila was a fan of a particular brutality, much like another buddy of ours, Vlad the Impaler.
Oh, hell
Oh,
yeah.
Batty Blatty.
That's right, he was impaling people.
Nice.
He left piles of skulls, burning mounds of bodies and heads on pikes everywhere he went to say, basically, Attila was here.
Which was crazy because there was also piles of corpses, and they were like, "Where's he getting all these skulls from? If there's corpses right over here."
Okay.
They weren't headless
That's
corpses.
because he,
Yeah, it's super weird.
It's like extra heads.
it didn't help that he also owned like a Spirit Halloween store, and it was off season.
Yeah, that, it really isn't
Lost a bunch of
profitable
money on
outside of the Halloween holiday.
Yeah.
That's true.
He never
A
bought
lot of
like a
the-
legit. He never bought like a legit sign. He just left the banner up.
For some reason, all the pikes said all sales are final after Halloween.
Some say that the brutality that Attila inflicted was so great that it even caused rivers of blood.
Yep.
Cool.
Cool.
I mean, sure, you know, it's probably not as crazy as they make it out to be. But
I will let these rivers run red with the blood of my vicious slaughter.
yeah,
Not my blood, not my problem.
Yeah.
My blood, my choice.
All of this, was a stark warning to anyone that dared to stand in Attila's way. To make matters worse, at least for the Eastern Romans, in 447, there was a massive earthquake in the region that had destroyed a section of the mighty Theodosian walls that protected Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire.
Not
And-
Istanbul.
No. It'll always be
Okay.
Constantinople to me. Now, just real quick on these walls. These walls were giant, and they did protect Constantinople for a very long time. And Constantinople was an insanely rich city, and everyone knew it. So Attila, he knew that these walls must have been damaged during this crazy earthquake. So him and his troops, they double-timed it over to Constantinople to take advantage of the weakness in the walls. But the people of Constantinople also double-timed in fixing the damaged walls.
Fuck.
So he kind of got there and he was like, God damn it. And he kind of like left again. But during this time, they actually built a seawall as well, just in case. And we'll do a future episode where this seawall actually plays a very important part. Those walls, those Theodosian walls, wouldn't come down until another buddy of ours, Mehmed the Conqueror, would bring them down with a giant-ass cannon.
Ah, yes, the Memon
Badass.
cannon.
Yeah. We're going to
It's
do
like a
that
cinematic
story at some
universe.
point, I promise you. So it's here in 448 that we finally get our first and only first-hand account of Attila and his court. His like court, you know, like all the people around him. What his camp looked like, what he looked like, how he acted to around people.
Yeah. Ba-na-na-na-na. It's Night Court.
Yeah.
Oh, is that okay?
That's a deep cut for you know.
Court at night.
Some of
I'm
our-
already laughing.
Some of
Yeah,
our,
right?
some of our listeners.
I don't know. Like, I was born in '90, and I barely remember that theme song.
I
Much less
barely
that.
remember it too.
Yeah.
I was
But
born in
I'm
'83. I'm fucking ancient, and I remember Night Court.
Yeah, me
You know? Well, what do you want? It's a
Yeah.
reference.
That's fine.
It's not I Love Lucy or anything.
Wait, I love who?
It's
right.
way less well regarded.
So a Greek diplomat, Priscus, he was the one who wrote about being among an envoy from the Eastern Roman Empire to discuss new terms of Attila's tribute. Now Attila, all he wanted were Hunnic hostages and prisoners returned to him. He wanted better envoys, like people with higher rank, to come and talk to him personally. He didn't want some, like, underling coming to speak with him. And, of course, he wanted more gold. This time he wanted 1,000 pounds of gold annually.
Way more
Nice.
fucking gold.
Way more gold.
That's so much gold.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh no, a tribute. I was about to say it's like, wait, a triumph? What?
No, a
But-
tribute. No, no,
yes,
no.
a tribute. Yes, I misread that.
There hasn't been
No,
a triumph in Rome for a long time in
Because-
this area, or in this time frame.
They didn't even want the best one. They just wanted a tribute, you know? They couldn't remember the best one in the world. That would just be a tribute.
Right.
Sure.
Thank you.
Rock.
Rig-a-goo-goo, rig-a-goo-goo, rock.
If necessary, he would meet with the Eastern Romans in person on the banks of the Danube. Now, all of this was sent in a message brought by one of Attila's trusted men. He was like a guard of Attila's. His name was Edeka. He brought this message to a eunuch chamberlain of the emperor, Chrysippus? I believe it's Chrysippus.
Let's just call him Chris.
We can call
Yeah,
him Chris
Chris.
if you want. Yeah,
Chris the eunuch.
He's a eunuch like me.
yeah. Everyone knows what eunuch means, right?
He ain't got no dick and balls.
He ain't got no balls.
He
He's
ain't
been
got no
castrated.
balls.
He's got a dick, he doesn't have balls, so he can
He's been
sing those
cast-
high notes.
This one didn't have a dick.
Okay.
Are you
He
talking about
lost his
yourself
dick
or
in an
this other
unrelated
Chris?
accident.
Oh, me. I thought you were talking about that.
And all of this was by way of a translator. The translator's name was Vigilus, so they could talk to each other. The three alone had dinner together, where Chrysippus had a proposition for Edeka. Now, here was the plan. Go back to Attila, kill him, return to Constantinople, where he would live the rest of his days in comfort and decadence. Now, Edeka, he agreed, but he'd need a lot of money to pay off a few key people. And there was a few of them. Anyway, 50 pounds of gold for each person would do it. It amounted to like a wagon or two of gold that he would need just to pay off people to keep them quiet. Yes?
Bringing them all up right now. Eddie is just, getting ready to do that deal.
Yeah.
Had he seen Edeka do anything really cool with, like, swords or anything? Like, did he know that he could pull it off?
Well, he was a Hun, and he was Attila's guard. I think that might be enough.
Good enough, I guess.
Yeah,
Good enough to guard Attila. Maybe he's better than
me.
Attila.
Yeah, well, who knows?
Happy Hogan isn't as good as Iron Man, that's all I'm going to say.
But they couldn't just bring these wagons full of gold that were unaccounted for on their envoy trip to go see Attila, though. So, Vigilus, the translator, he would stay behind in Constantinople. He would be given instruction on how to deliver the gold to Edeka, and they would meet later. Like, after Edeka left and went south, Vigilus would go north, and they'd meet up, exchange gold, and that would be how that would be how they would do it. They would also need legitimacy for their cloak and dagger envoy trip, they would need someone of a decent rank to speak with Attila who would not be aware of the plot. So this guy named Maximinus, he would do. He was just sort of this, he was kind of a higher up guy, but yeah, totally a higher ranking envoy that they've had ever sent to Attila in the past.
Maximinus, kid brother of Maximus, correct?
No.
I was gonna
That's an
say
old
that with that, I mean, with enough hustle, he can be Maximagus any
Nice.
day. Get out of those Maximiners.
Technically, Maximus is an earned name. Technically.
Yeah,
like
by taking it to the max, you become Maximus.
Yeah, by taking it to the limit.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Push it to the limit.
They're like,
Yeah.
I saw you drink everything in that bar last night. Your new name's Maximus. Because when you blacked out and shit all over yourself, it was like art.
Super fun.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. We all laughed and laughed.
Much like Russell Crowe's performance in Les Miserables.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
So with this, Etica, Maximinus, along with their retinue, and the writer Priscus along, who was totally unaware of the plot, went along on this on this trip to go see Attila. And the crazy thing about Priscus is that he writes about like Attila, his court, and like all the people around him, with no idea that this murder plot is happening. So it's kind of interesting reading like his work and knowing that this is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's pretty interesting. But anyway,
Well, he also got 30 miles a gallon in the city, which was like a huge triumph at the time.
God damn it.
wah.
Priscus was highly fuel efficient. Just saying.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, you
I
got
know.
it? Got the
Yeah,
Prius
yeah.
joke? Okay.
Yeah, I got the priest joke.
Along the way, they would see impaled bodies, the heads on sticks,
Cool.
a river that was hard to cross because of all the bodies piled on the banks. Just all reminders of Attila's unrelenting brutality.
A river that is hard to cross is lame and not very epic. But then when you got to the bodies that were the reason why the river wasn't easy to cross, it kind of flipped it on me.
Yeah,
The ri-
right.
Yeah, I was like, oh, the river started to cross because of all the bodies.
Yeah.
All right.
The river
So-
would have been fine.
It's like, just cock the wagon and float across. Ford the river. We've all played Oregon Trail. I know how to do this shit.
I couldn't help but be reminded of Caligula, and I was just like, there's all these bodies. Why don't you just make a bridge out of them?
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Life gives you lemons.
Make beef stew.
Now, they had both Romans and Huns in their group, so they did have, like, squabbles along the way. One time they were getting drunk together, and they were toasting with their cups, and the Romans said to the emperor, and the Huns said to Attila, but it kind of became a point of contention because the Roman, like Maximinus, he didn't want to equate a god with a man. And the Huns were like, you're right. Attila's a god. Thank you for saying so. And they were like, no.
That's not what I said. You're putting
what I
words
said.
in my mouth.
Yeah. I said, so they had fights over that.
Why couldn't they
Even-
just coexist like that bumper sticker?
Oh, yeah, they hadn't seen that bumper sticker, so they hadn't seen it yet, so...
That would have changed everything.
It would've
There was
changed
a
everything.
coexist brand on each fucking horse.
They would have set their weapons down the second
Yeah.
they would have seen that bumper sticker, for sure.
See,
Yeah.
at the time, drawings had meaning and they weren't just pointless scribbles, so the coexist bumper sticker didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take that,
wasn't a-
religions. Go fuck yourself.
So I think what we're all trying to say is that there wasn't a white woman in Sedona, Arizona that could come up with this design to provide to the Huns. to brand them their horses.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was too busy doing a Southwestern illustration of a guy with like a pan flute. You know?
Or playing with crystals.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Even their tent placements when they reached Attila's camp was contentious. The Romans' tent couldn't be higher than Attila's, like where they were. It had to be lower.
You know what this is like? Remember in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, how the Disney characters and the Warner Brothers characters could have one more frame than the other one?
Right.
Exactly. Yes. It's totally true.
It's Mickey Mouse and the clearly inferior Bugs Bunny.
I don't know about that.
Nobody agrees with that.
Yeah.
You don't have to for it to be true.
One has a great theme park, the other is a better character.
Yeah.
Like
Both
literally,
being Bugs Bunny.
one is on $5 sweaters at Walmart, and one is on like fucking like $250 like handbags. Trust me, I know.
Both of them, I feel, are on $5 sweaters at Walmart.
No, straight up, Disney won't license their shit. Like they only license their shit to the highest bidder.
Oh,
They're the better
okay.
capitalists. We get it.
Yeah.
Next.
Oh well.
Yeah.
They own everything.
And this is why Star Wars is ruined. Anyway, continue. Let's go.
Oh, it was already ruined.
Welcome to Star Wars podcast. As they arrived, though, Attila sent out one of his men to ask them what the Emperor of the Eastern Empire had to say to Attila's terms. He's like, "Yeah, I'm here to speak for Attila. So what do you got? What do you got to say? Yes or no?" And they're like, "Well, we were hoping that we would speak with Attila, like, personally, you know. We were told from our emperor that we were only supposed to talk to Attila." And so the guy went back to Attila, and the guy came back, and he goes, "Attila says, I've heard all I need to hear. Goodbye." And so, like, they're thinking, like, "Ah, shit. Well, there goes our murder plot." You know?
They asked to speak to a manager.
Tell him you are the manager.
Yeah. Yeah. But they were like, "We gotta do something. We have to lie. We have to do something to make this plan work. You know, we can't just go back with nothing just from him saying, 'Oh, you're not gonna meet with me?' Or, you know, 'Oh, you got nothing? All right, then fuck off.' So we gotta do something." So they're you know, it left them sort of in limbo for a while. And Edeka, the whole time, he was, you know, he's having these sleepless nights. He was a Hun. He was wondering what he should do. The plan was compromised, and all of that, you know, the murder plot was going to be way more difficult now. But he still wanted all those riches that were promised to him, and that was hard to ignore. But he could tell Attila, although he couldn't know how he would react to such news. But maybe Attila would reward him for exposing a murder plot.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, maybe if he did that the first time. You know?
Yeah.
I was supposed to kill you until it got hard. Now I'm here to tell you about how I'm here to kill you.
I remember when I've been, like, hiding out outside your fucking area for 3 days and asked to come in, you wouldn't let me. They want to kill you. I swear I'm not part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. In any case, at the last minute, Attila invited the envoy to dinner. And they all scrambled to get ready. They're like, shit. They're like, oh, okay, we're not going. Get everything together. Remember the plan, guys. Oh, yeah, they weigh, like, straighten the tie.
There's gonna be ladies there?
Yeah.
Right.
I like how we're
What are you wearing?
One of them.
on the Zoom call, we could see each other miming straightening ties like the audience at home can hear it.
Yeah. So inside Attila's grand tent, their dinners consisted of lavish food and wine, and at several points during the dinner, people would stand up with their cups full of wine. They would cheers and toast to Attila and talk about how great Attila was, and it was expected that everyone at that point would drink everything in their cup, and then sit it down, and then they'd be refilled.
Chug.
Yeah, it happened multiple times. So people were getting fucked up, like, pretty quick during this dinner.
These are our people, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wait, was there tobacco yet?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. I was about to say.
Getting that drunk with no cigarettes? Come on.
Now, of course, Zircon performed. The Romans in attendance were mystified more than anything. They didn't think the Hunnic sense of humor was very funny at all. Like, he like got up, he rolled around, and they were just laughing. They were basically laughing at his physical deformity. And as we can judge the Huns on their unenlightened sort of sense of humor, laughing at people's physical deformities is, I mean, not being cool with that is pretty recent. You know what I mean? Like, we still had freak shows in this country for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a film called Freak Show.
Yeah, we still had, like, circuses with freaks in them where people would go and gawk at, at people with physical deformities or maladies or things like that. So,
I mean, didn't we talk about Ripley's Believe It or Not on the last episode?
Yeah. That's kind of, I mean, that's that, only the Huns are laughing. And back in the day, people in America would laugh at the bearded lady and the fat lady and things like that. So,
well, I still laugh whenever I go to Walmart, so.
I feel like they did that in the 80s.
They did that for a long time. Still sort of do. Some assholes too, But the Romans, they didn't think it was that funny. They were they're laughing at, like, a guy rolling around and speaking in sort of broken Hunnic Latin Greek, which is sort of weird.
So what you're saying is they were Frasier guys.
Yes.
The Romans were Frasier guys. Yeah, and even though the Huns had were described as short and ugly and really inhuman by the Roman writers,
the ladies.
Well, Priscus writes that beautiful Hunnic women were brought in, and they were there for everybody, I guess. Like, they were just offered to everybody. And I guess the Roman envoys were like, "No, this whole thing has been kind of weird for us. We're gonna pass." And the Huns were like, Psh.
Not Priscus, though. He was into it.
Priscus was not. No, none of the Romans were. They were all kind of put off by this whole thing.
None of the Romans wanted some honey?
No, they were literal fly honeys.
Jesus.
And by that I mean there were women under the age of 25 that had all of their teeth still.
Women under the age of 18. Probably.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's probably the truth of the matter. But if I said it like it was a good thing, it would,
It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
No. They were like, have some children to fuck, guys.
Yeah.
You see, and the Romans are like, normally I'd do it, they're just way too dark for me.
I think it was just because they were uncomfortable the whole time. But, I mean, Romans did that all the time. This was not an alien thing for them.
Nobody here is a good person.
No.
Right.
No.
Oh, no.
By modern standards, I mean.
By modern standards, yeah.
I just want to say that Tyler really fucked up my my fly girl joke by bringing up the underage rape.
Jerry brought it up first. I tried to keep the girls over 18 in this scenario, and Jerry ruined it for me, so Jerry ruined it for you. Jerry ruins everything.
I had to ruin it with historical accuracy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Again, our very own little father over here.
Gotta remind us how dark everything was for all of history.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole point of this podcast, I guess.
Yeah. We're not gonna gloss over the shit that's uncomfortable for you. I'm sorry. Now, Etica, he had made his decision, and he would tell Attila of the murder plot. And although Attila was thoroughly pissed off by this, he directed all of his fervor towards the emperor and the minister,
Just call him Sissy Chris.
Chris. He directed all of his anger against Chris and the emperor. But little did Vigilus know, however, who was on the way with all that gold in the wagons, he thought the plan was still on. So he was on his way with all these bribes. So instead of finding Etika at the meeting place, he met Attila and his Huns. And, like, Attila kind of played dumb. You know, he kind of the crazy thing is about this whole thing, about this whole, like, murder plot and whatnot, is that Attila showed restraint. He didn't, like, crucify anyone. He didn't impale anyone. He kind of let him go and then went to meet Vigilus to kind of see what was going to happen with all that gold.
Well, he wanted to see how things were going to play out before he murdered everybody.
Right.
Right, yeah. Otherwise, he'd be the biggest loser. Like, what was the name of that 70s game show? I'll take what's in the box, Monty.
Let's make a deal?
Let's make a deal, that's it. Yeah.
Attila and his Huns met Vigilus, and Attila was like, hey, what's with all the gold, man? And Vigilus is like, well, you see, I have this gold because we got it for this thing, and Attila, like, already knows about, like, the plot. And he's like,
it's tribute for, it's for you, Attila. Yeah, that's it.
It was gold that we were going to use to buy balloons for a party in your honor, and everyone's going to celebrate you.
Yeah. So, surprise is ruined.
Yeah, sorry about ruining the surprise. We knew your birthday was coming up.
Yeah, and Vigilus was there with his son, and of course, you know, Attila took his son and, like, held a sword to his throat, and he's like, tell me the truth, or your son gets it. He's like, I already know the truth, but you don't know that. Just tell me the truth. I want to hear it from you. So, Vigilus spilled the beans, and Attila took the gold.
He's like, that's mine now.
He sent Vigilus back to the Emperor, and they all, like, looked like fools. Like, he sent all of them back to the Emperor. Like, he didn't kill any of them. He sent them all back, and he laughed because he took the gold, and he's like, and you do agree to give me more gold annually, right? And they're like, I guess.
God damn it.
You know?
Wait, did he give him back his son?
Yeah.
That was my son now.
Like, the thing is like, Attila wasn't, again, like, he wasn't, like, personally greedy. He, like, didn't really want the gold for himself or anything. He wanted it for everybody. Because it kind of made him more powerful to, like, dole out gold amongst his people. And he kind of was more of a fan of appearances, so making them look like idiots was something that, he relished. He loved making them look like idiots.
Man, I really, really hope that when Attila sent him off back to Rome, he also, like, had a bunch of everyday balloons.
Yeah.
Well, and real quick, okay, I hate to be just harping on this. If you're going to go lie to Attila the Hun with a bunch of gold, why are you going to bring your kid with you? Leave him at home where he's safe.
Didn't have a babysitter.
I kind of thought about that too. Like,
he's like, come on, son. We're going to go lie to Attila the Hun.
Simply going to meet Attila, I don't know if I would bring, like, my family with me. You know?
Like, it's going to be great. It's going to be a family affair. It's going to be great.
There's water slides. There's Attila the Hun. He might murder all of us.
So, by now, the tribute to keep Attila happy was up to 2,600 pounds of gold. Which is way more than they can afford.
They're fucking up.
Fuck yeah.
Some people even called, like, Attila even crazy for thinking that they could even ever hope to afford that. And I think Attila kind of knew it. He was like, as long as they keep saying, yeah, I'll pay it, like, you know, I'll keep doing what I'm doing.
Right.
And in that moment, the first check into cash was born.
Yeah. Now, up until this point, Attila was on pretty good terms with the crumbling Western Roman Empire. Until this crazy twist of court intrigue. You see, there was a woman named Galla Placidia, and she had 2 children, an elder daughter, Honoria, and a younger son, Valentinian III. Now, Valentinian III may have only been 6 years old, but he was the true emperor of the Western Roman Empire. And after defeating the usurper that was already there, he was given the empty title of Augustus, and he became the emperor of the West. His mother, Galla Placidia, was his regent, and she was calling the shots for him.
Mm-hmm.
But mommy, I want to have horses at my birthday party.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear about these
Shut the fuck
monarchy
up.
things where it ends up being like a 6-year-old is the king or emperor or whatever, I'm always like, good thing we don't do that anymore, and we have 70-year-old reality TV celebrities as president now.
Yeah, that's so much better.
Former WWF superstar.
Yeah.
Almost like a 6-year-old would probably be better than this.
Somebody calling the shots for him.
I'm surprised there isn't more like statues of juice boxes and shit.
Now, Galla Placidia's daughter, Honoria, she was caught in an affair with her chamberlain, which was a big old no-no in that time. So she was married off to a Roman senator, and this was considered like a safe bet. Like, this guy would never seek the throne of Rome. So they, all right, we don't gotta worry about this guy, let's just marry her to him. And Honoria, she didn't like that one bit. So, in an act of defiance, she asked Attila the Hun for help.
Oh no.
She sent him her ring along too. Now, whether or not this was an actual marriage proposal, Attila certainly thought it was one.
Nice.
Why wouldn't it?
So,
Why exactly was it a no-no in the time? Is it because her being sort of in a way, heir to the throne, the Chamberlain kind of has a shot towards the throne at this point? Is that what the issue is? Or
well, yes and no. Chamberlain was like a title that was supposed to be there to never have any sort of ambitions towards the throne, and the fact that Honoria's status was that of royalty, to marry or to go down, to marry down in that way, would have been highly dishonorable. It was like a bad thing, I guess.
sucks
Well,
that you can't even get, like, a
according to
rock
history, Honora already went down on him.
And you guys can read all about this in Jerry Nash's new paperback novel, Honoria's Honor. It's going to be on bookshelves July 11th, and it's a very steamy, a very sexual novel. And
Very
so,
erotic.
if you're a guy, you probably won't jack off to it, but if you're a lady, you're going to be doing whatever you guys do with that in your hand.
Whatever you do down there. I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever.
It's not my business.
Think,
Chris, you're a true gentleman.
reading that while you shop online.
Jesus. So Attila now considered all of the Western Roman Empire as his dowry. Like, he was going to marry into their royalty, so it was his, right?
That's mine now.
Nice.
Yeah, and he was going to come and take it. And everyone in the Western Roman Empire was like, no, that's not what she meant. You see, she's crazy. She's crazy, you see, and she's already married. And Attila's like, oh no, she's innocent in all of this. She wants to be married to me. Hell, I'll come marry her. Yeah.
How old
I'll
was
marry
she
the
at this
shit
point?
out of her.
Probably.
I actually don't know.
I'm just curious because I'm like.
We do know that she was older. It's implied that she was older.
So my guess is she knew exactly what he was going to think and did it to piss everyone off.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. It was a misstep on her part, for sure. Like that's a.
I'm just saying she knew by sending the ring. She knew.
She dated a Hun
What?
to piss off her dad.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I mean, no, but I don't think that she knew exactly what she was getting herself into when she did that. I think it was a knee-jerk, rebellious reaction, and she didn't really know what she was doing when she did that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm just saying she knew he would view it as a marriage proposal. I mean, just kind of, it was a...
It's hard to say. It's hard to say, but...
just might not know the consequences of having done that.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to say whether or not it was a marriage proposal at all. Like, you know, what rings mean to certain people, you know, there was definitely a cultural divide between them, so it's hard to really say. But, you know, the Romans were understandably very pissed off at this. They were like, do you realize what you've just done? You've just doomed us all, you know? And so...
This is how Jerry's going to get out of never getting married. He's going to be like, rings mean a lot of things in a lot of different cultures, honey. You know, I mean, like, is it really that important, you know?
Well, in any case, Honoria was exiled instead of executed. And history is kind of silent. I mean, not kind of. History is silent on what became of her. We don't really know what happened to Honoria after that.
To me, it just sounds like the entirety of Rome were disappointed that Honoria just didn't go and, you know, flirt with the Goths for a little bit, you know, have the Caesar stew haircut and, you know, just like hang out and, you know, do the little fucking Goth white guy sway, you know.
It was a phase.
Yeah, it was clearly a phase, but of course she had to go for the bad boy.
Yeah. It's absolutely like a Game of Thrones-esque move. That
Game of what?
Game of Thrones-esque move that like exploded in her face.
I've never heard of it.
It's a popular TV show based off a comic book, dude.
Is it a comic book?
What is? Wait,
Who cares?
It's a long-ass
what
comic
is this
book.
TV show you speak of?
Yeah, it was popular. I didn't watch it, but you know, there's a lot of intrigue and whatnot. Anyway.
I've heard that it's a terrible like incest porn.
But the thing about Game of Thrones is if you're into incest, it's really cool. Because like there's like a Venn diagram where there's dragons and incest and not a lot in that middle spot, but Game of Thrones showed up and we're like, finally. I mean, by we, I mean not me, I mean like other people out there who might want to see.
Tyler, you watched every episode.
Watched every episode more than once.
Yeah.
Except for the last season. The last season wasn't very good.
So furries is what you're saying is what's in the center of the Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Hey, let furries be their best selves.
I agree.
Let's
furries
not. I remember Rainforest.
Yeah. What two consenting adults do in forced animal costumes is clearly less offensive than the last season of Game of Thrones. So
I think
that's my own personal opinion, but you know, I mean, also think it's the truth.
A bunch of people argued on Facebook about the last season of Game of Thrones, but you know, furries are out there doing, you know, living their lives, you know, being who they are. I think it's great. So let them do it.
I'm with you, Jerry.
They're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
You know.
Let them live
Hitting
their
a
life.
vape the size of a Subway footlong, you know? Just dressing like a fox or, you know, a squirrel or whatever, just blowing out fat clouds of vape, living their lives.
Yeah, dressed as a fox or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway. Attila the Hun turned his gaze on Gaul, which is like modern day, like, France, you know, Western Europe. And he began a long and bloody campaign in 451 AD. Despite not having the legions that Rome once had, there was one man that stood in Attila's way. A Roman general named Flavius Aetius.
Flavor Flav.
What?
Yeah, boy.
What is Lil Jon? Just putting that out there.
Oh, yeah. What? That was Little John, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah. Aetius was considered by the Romans to be the last true Roman, like the person that really embodied the Roman spirit of like Augustus and, you know, like Pompey and the great Romans.
It's full of pomp.
Yeah.
He's like our Hunter S. Thompson.
He's like a General Patton You know what I mean?
Okay.
He's like American to the core, you know? This guy was Roman
I
to
meant
the
American
core.
in a good way, I guess, and that wasn't fair to America.
No.
To say anything nice.
No. He was General Patton. American to the core in kind of a scary way. He already was kind of legendary in his own right. As a boy, though, he lived with the Goths and even as the Huns as a hostage, much like Vlad and Radu did among the Ottomans.
Dude.
Yeah.
Fucking
Dude, I miss him.
Yeah, Radu the Handsome. Yeah, he was a hostage for diplomatic reasons. And this was a very common thing. You know what I mean? Like, we discussed this in the Vlad the Impaler episode. Very common to have hostage sons for these reasons. He learned their language and some of their customs, and he may have even known Attila personally. Earlier, there was a matter of some alleged stolen gold plates that Attila wanted back. So Aetius sent Attila an envoy to sort of smooth things over, and it did work for a short time, with Attila sending Aetius the dwarf Zircon as a gesture of goodwill. He's like, Aetius, take Zircon, please.
Take my Zircon, please. Seriously, take him. He's hilarious.
Yeah. Like he's
Yeah.
rolling around asking us for gold plates.
Yeah.
Well,
And,
and also he wanted those gold plates back because they had all the secrets of Mormonism hidden in them.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a way to bring Mormonism into that, and
Yeah.
Nice.
you did it, and I'm impressed with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Zircon, the crazy thing about him is he was actually returned to his original master that was he was taken from his original master by Bleda, and so Zircon was eventually just returned to him. So it kind of
I
came
was
full
hoping-
circle for
United
Zircon.
and it feels so good.
I wanted you to say Zircon was returned to his original form and he was just ripped and like a regular sized dude, and he's like, thank you so much for putting up with me for all these years. I'm actually a tasty botted handsome boy, and I'm here to give you guys all like Hershey's Kisses, and he just has a bag or something.
There's like
I don't
two
know.
big old bags of Hershey's Kisses.
No, that's what he called his nipples, his Hershey kisses.
They were
I see.
they were very dark for such a light skinned man.
Well, let's remember Zircon was Moorish, so
Well,
Oh,
then they
yeah.
were very light for such a dark skinned man.
yeah, he was actually from Libya.
White chocolate kisses.
Weird. However, when Attila started invading Gaul, everything was off the table. Attila thought that Theodoric, the king of the Visigoths, would declare independence in the wake of a weakened Rome. When Attila goes into Gaul and weakens Rome, the one that is clearly like sitting on top if Rome were to go down were to be Theodoric and the Visigoths. He thought, oh, the Visigoths are just gonna go, we're independent from Rome and be good. So he didn't really think that there would be a threat there. But Aetius beat him to the punch, and he convinced Theodoric, among a few others, that the Huns wouldn't stop with Rome, and they would eventually be coming for them. So they agreed to put aside their differences and fight together against Attila and the Huns.
Ah.
Reunited and it feels so good.
Ooh, they were never united until now, really. In this one instance.
I was thinking it was
It's-
more
So it's more of a ebony and ivory.
Yeah. Although
No.
I mean, for a long time, the Romans used Gothic mercenaries and even Hunnic mercenaries. It gets kind of muddy, but it's the first time that like they really came together to fight one common enemy. Now, the joint Visigothic and Roman force linked up in Aurelianum, which is modern-day Orleans. And you can kind of hear how it kind of turned into Orleans. Aurelianum,
Oh, yeah.
Orleans. It kind of went through a couple of stages before it became Orleans.
Yeah, people got tired of saying all the syllables.
Yeah, it's easier to say. And they
They're like,
were...
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I pronounce it after a couple drinks.
Yeah. Well, that's French for you. It's a romantic language that just sort of yeah. But what they did is when they linked up, they kind of they forced Attila to break off his siege, like because he was traipsing around. They forced him to break off his siege and move into the open country. And Attila, he was kind of slowed down. He wasn't as lightning fast because he had already been through all of Gaul before they could snag him. So he was slowed down by like his like treasure and like all this like booty he had from
and
like
all that rich French food. There's so much butter and layers of razor thin bread. It's like you got the croissants, you got the brioche. I mean, come on, man. Just take a nap, man.
goose livers and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, delicious stuff.
Yeah. So he was moving a little slower, and honestly, he may have been content with just returning back to Pannonia, which is modern-day Hungary, and that was kind of his capital, with what he had. But Aetius cornered him and forced him to fight. So their forces met on the Catalonian plains in what would become the Battle of Chalons in June 20th, 451. Otherwise known as the Battle of the Catalonian Plains. Some say it's one of the most significant battles of all time because of what is going to transpire here.
Is it more important than the Battle of Endor?
No, certainly.
Considering that this one actually existed, yes.
But did they have a Death Star?
No.
No. Moving on.
Okay. There was a lot of people fighting, but what I want you to know is that the Visigoths and the Romans are on one side, and the Huns and the Ostrogoths are on the other side.
Right,
So
and they're
this is where the traditional Goths and the Cyber Goths are beefing on the dance floor. And don't get me started with the fetish Goths. God damn.
You got one group shuffling, one group, I don't know, cyber shuffling. You got one group fetish shuffling. They're all shuffling.
In one way or another.
I have stories to tell you about the goth clubs. Believe you me.
Dude, my wife has a membership to the Mercury.
That's unfortunate.
And actually,
one-
I have a membership to the Mercury by proxy.
Yeah. That one goth
Fair
club
enough.
in Portland.
Lovecraft.
Lovecraft.
love it.
That place
Lovecraft.
is dope, dude.
Yeah.
I did not think I would like it,
I
but that
remember
place is awesome.
being in the lift
No.
going there and saying, I said something about dancing, and everyone in the car goes, "We don't dance." And I go, "You're gonna dance there." And then it was like cut to 3 hours later, and like Jerry and Jacob were like on the stage.
Oh,
It was specifically me and Chris that said, I'm not gonna dance.
Yeah.
And then, like, when we got there, like, we instantly started dancing.
You can't not dance at Lovecraft. It's just it's way
I
too
danced
good.
on the fucking stage.
It's awesome.
Here's the problem with goth clubs. The goth clubs are awesome. The people there, insufferable.
I think that's the difference with
wasn't
Lovecraft is
bad.
it doesn't take itself seriously.
Yes.
Like the
I've never
Mercury
been to
takes
Merc.
itself seriously.
Yeah, I've never been there, but Lovecraft, that was a pretty dope spot. I like that place.
Yeah.
Mercury's a good place to start your night. Their drinks are strong.
Ooh.
It's true. I mean, I'm still not a member, but every time I'm on a goth tour, I get to walk in like I am a member.
Nice.
Now, both sides took heavy casualties. It was a bloodbath, guys. Like, these two armies duked it out. Like, it was an absolute bloodbath. Theodoric himself was knocked from his horse and trampled under the thundering hooves of his own army.
Oh, God.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, the old king's death actually inspired the Visigoths, however, and they pushed the Huns and the Ostrogothic forces back. So, Attila, in his war camp, he was being besieged in there, and the proud Hun leader, Attila, he didn't want to admit defeat. So instead, he built a giant bonfire, threatening to burn himself on it instead.
It's not the same thing at all.
Okay.
So Aetius knew that Attila was defeated, and he also knew that he would kind of fight to the last man. So he wisely considered that, well, without Attila, there would be a power vacuum left by like, you know, the new emboldened Visigoths that would now be like more powerful than Rome and now more powerful than the Huns, and that they would fill that. So instead, he let Attila go, and he told all of the Goths and everyone that was with him, go back to your places, consolidate your power, take care of your people. I know Attila's burned down a lot of your cities. Go and take care of them, and I'll kind of pick up the pieces from here.
I promise society's not completely falling apart, and we're not about to go into hundreds of years of darkness. This is totally normal and fine. Just go home.
I'm just envisioning, you know, the mission accomplished banner right behind him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there was that for sure. And some people believe that it was that Aetius was doing this only so he could take the gold that he had now taken from Attila and he could have it to himself. I don't know if I agree with that. I just think with Aetius's actions that he was a better person than that, and he really did want to see Rome continue. I think that's why he did all of this.
Well, plus he had tons of money in crypto, so like he didn't even need that gold.
So Attila, licking his wounds and pissed off that he lost some of his booty, decided that he would ravage northern Italy on his way back because there was literally nothing stopping him from doing so.
Just get some light raiding done on the way home, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the grocery store's on the way home, you know?
Right.
I've always heard that when you have a toddler throwing a temper tantrum, you let them burn themselves out.
Right.
So,
And there's no better place for him to burn himself out to the place where the only resistance is a bunch of dudes on a Vespa smoking a really long cigarette.
and where they tell you every that everything's gonna take 5 minutes.
So Valentinian III, still a child emperor, he went into hiding. And Aetius was almost more of an emperor than Valentinian III and Galla Placidia could ever hope to be. So what a lot of people attribute to Aetius, some attribute to Valentinian III. That's laughable, I think. But Aetius sent a last-minute Hail Mary pass to stop Attila. And what this was a delegation of people to go talk with him, including Pope Leo I, also called Pope Leo the Great.
Not that great.
Now, no one knows exactly what was said, but the legend is that when asked who he was by Pope Leo, he said, quote, "I am Attila, the scourge of God." End quote. Which is fucking metal.
Okay,
And
that's pretty metal.
Pope Leo was like, I didn't get the memo. I talk to the guy every day. And I just so happen to be very good at it.
But that's certainly bullshit. That probably was never said. That quote, "I am Attila, the scourge of God," that was written a long time after Attila was gone. So, almost certainly bullshit. Now, people would credit Pope Leo I for either bribing, threatening, or somehow convincing Attila to leave, and they still celebrate him for doing this. Like, Pope Leo, he was so great, he made him leave, he made Attila leave.
Make love to me, Pope Leo.
But are you a little boy?
Yeah. But the truth is probably closer to the fact that Attila already had a bunch of booty. There were crop failures, famine, and disease in northern Italy. So, like, him being there was like, I'm not really getting a whole lot from being in northern Italy right now. And he still didn't really know the whereabouts of Aetius. So, he didn't really want to provoke him. So he turned around and left. And he was willing to negotiate a peace with the Western Roman Empire in 452.
Well, and he left because he was like, there's just these ugly, ugly plants called tomatoes everywhere, and I can't stand them. They're good for nothing. They got
There
this
wasn't
gross
even that.
dough. It's good for nothing. They got these tomatoes, good for nothing. Delicious whole milk mozzarella, good for nothing. I'm out of here.
There wasn't even that. Like,
I don't think tomatoes were around then.
well, they were. They absolutely were.
Didn't they
But
think they're-
again,
yeah.
crop failures and famine and stuff, there wasn't a whole lot of it.
Also,
I like to think that he got annoyed by every Italian trying to speak to him, but with their hands the entire time.
Jesus.
it's a little intense.
And he's just like, why are they being so aggressive? Like, I just want to know, like, where do I get a nice hot meal? But never mind.
I had read online
We
that
love our
like
listeners
in
in
Italy,
Italy.
like tomatoes were considered to be poisonous, and in most of the world they were considered to be poisonous until like the 16th or 17th century, where they like people realized they were food and were like, oh, these are actually super good.
Well,
And
they are a nightshade.
they are a nightshade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
so
the
maybe
reason
there's
why my
something-
ankles just they grow a size like the Grinch's heart on Christmas every time I eat a pizza pie.
I almost spat out my beer when you said that. So Attila returned to Pannonia and planned another attack on Constantinople because the new emperor of the East, Marcian, had stopped the tributes to the Huns yet again. But this wasn't to be. Attila the Hun would die in the early months of 453 on his wedding night, although he had many wives and he had many wedding nights. This new wife was a young, probably Gothic girl
Oh, nice.
named Ildiko. And after a
She probably would by the name of Dark Angel online.
Azrael, some shit like that.
Black tears.
Well, Ildiko is a straight up Gothic name. That's why people think she was probably Gothic. So, there you go. So after a day and night of partying like no other for Attila's wedding, Ildiko awoke the camp with her blood-curdling screams.
I just assuming that's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
Oh no.
She was just a regular Daria about it.
Guys.
Yeah, right. And when they came in through the door of Attila's tent, there lay the great Attila, with blood coming from his nose and mouth, dead, and Ildiko weeping over his body and the sight of him.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
I'm curious, though. Do you think the Smiths would have been playing in the background over his corpse?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, if she put it on, I don't think it was really his thing.
Yeah.
Oh, no. He obviously had to listen to the Smiths because of Ildiko.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, he
mean,
pretended
you
he
gotta
was into it.
share some interest, you know.
He
you
was
gotta
more of
find
a hair
common
metal
ground.
kind of guy.
Yeah. For sure. Now, many throughout history have said that he was assassinated in their marriage bed that night with Ildiko's blade.
Oh, for sure.
Sounds
The
right.
truth, though, is Attila drank way too much when he passed
Nice.
out that night, and he got
Badass.
a really bad nosebleed that drained into his throat and choked him and drowned him in his own blood.
That's
Oh,
badass.
That's what happened
Okay.
to Master Roshi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say he's your regular old anime character. Whenever he got hard, had a gnarly nosebleed.
Yeah. For the Huns, they were like, and I think a lot of people too, looking back, they're like, this is no way for the great Hun leader to die. choking on his own nosebleed. I mean, come on, it's got to be more glorious than that. I think that's why people say it was an assassination or something. He died in violence the way he lived. But it's probably not true.
And thus began the saga of Weekend at Attila's. They were conquering, and they had him on a horse, and he's like, I'm going to conquer this, and then, it was a whole thing.
Yeah. I'd pay to see that movie. So the Huns mourned their great leader by cutting their hair and slashing their cheeks, so that Attila wouldn't be mourned by the tears of the women, but by the blood of men.
Badass.
At least that's how
But
they
also the tears of the women. Like, it's both.
Yeah. And the
not one.
tears of men.
Yes.
Yeah.
They also feasted and had funeral games.
Ooh.
Oh, like cornhole.
Like cornhole? Yeah,
cornhole.
exactly.
I thought
Cornhole.
cornhole too.
It was probably like target shooting. I don't know. It's probably something like that. It was probably
I don't
something
know,
like
man.
way.
Isn't that what
It's
cornhole
not a funeral
really is?
without cornhole.
That'd be great at a funeral. That's gonna be at my funeral.
Yeah. And the beanbags, they have to be of your corpse.
Yeah, my bones are inside, crushed up
I thought you were
inside.
going to say they're
Ashes.
made of your scrotum
Okay.
and filled with your bones.
Yeah, because my scrotum is huge, and it's
I've
able
seen
to
it.
fit several beanbags for cornhole.
I know that's
stretch
not
it.
true, but
At least 6.
Yeah.
I know
get
that's
it, you-
not true. You better
take-
start stretching it now.
You take the dead man's scrotum, you dip it in some water, and you stretch it out. It's like dough.
Okay. Sound oddly familiar. You're gonna get us on a watch list or something. This combination of celebration and lamentation had a long history in the ancient world. The mourning process was about not just mourning the person who died, but also about celebrating their life. So they would play games, they would feast, they would get super drunk, and that's kind of how it was. I like that idea. I think that's like the best thing that we can take from the ancient world is partying at your funeral.
Oh, big time.
Absolutely.
Andrew WK was there. They partied till they puked.
Right?
Everyone got wet. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. They smoked angel dust.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Now that night of Attila's funeral, far beyond the frontiers of the Roman Empire, Attila was buried, and it is said that his body was encased in 3 coffins.
Chopped him up.
No. The innermost coffin was a gold coffin. The second one was silver, and the third was iron. It was supposed to symbolize sort of how Attila lived his life and whatnot. It's probably bullshit that was a thing, because they didn't really know how to cast. There's no evidence that the Huns knew how to cast things.
They didn't know what to do with all that gold they were given.
Yeah, so that iron coffin must have been big, and a lot of people doubt the fact that they could make those things in such a short amount of time. So that's probably bullshit. But anyway, the legend continues in that it is said a river was diverted, and so there was a riverbed, and Attila was buried in the empty riverbed, and then the waters were released to flow over it to cover his burial spot.
So it sounds to me like they were paranoid about him coming back as a lich or like a zombie, because they knew that he was going to be really fucking pissed off and embarrassed because of how he died.
They were different times, Zach, and there was different spells, not like the spells of today that can't bring back the dead. Back then, they had tons more spells that absolutely could.
I think they were more afraid
You're absolutely right.
of someone desecrating their great leader's corpse. You know what I mean?
With necromancy.
Yeah, with those nasty spells.
Well, I think that the Huns and even the Romans carried around like skulls of their enemies, and they didn't want that for Attila, because even the people that had taken part in the funeral and his burial were also killed, so no one knew where it was.
Right.
And the fact that these people did this, like, a lot of people were like, well, it sucks to bury him, right? And it's like, no. The people that actually buried him, they knew that this death was coming for them, and it was seen as a very honorable death to sort of go with Attila in his funeral sort of procession, you know.
People carried around skulls with them back in the day because puppets were so fucking expensive.
Yeah.
It's easier just to kill someone.
Yeah.
To me, the funeral party was similar to that as the band going down with the Titanic.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an honorable thing to sort of go down with it, I guess. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure playing with you.
Yeah. The truth of his burial is still unknown. The thing about the coffins is certainly bullshit, and there's a lot of people to this day, mainly on the History Channel, that claim to have found where Attila was buried. All of that's bullshit. I just want you to know. We're never finding his body.
Yeah.
I hope when they
We're
open
not
the
gonna find
coffin, they find all of Al Capone's missing tax information or whatever as well.
Or Jimmy Hoffa's body, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, he went back to his home planet.
Yeah, right.
Come on,
Like
guys.
Poochie.
Yeah, exactly. It was aliens all along.
Simpsons reference.
Yeah.
So after his death, the Hun Empire was divided amongst Attila's sons, who it's pretty widely accepted that they squabbled and wasted their resources and let the whole thing fall apart only 16 years after Attila's death. And the Western Roman Empire wouldn't fare much better, only lasting 25 years after the Battle of Chalons, before it too fell.
So we have a quinceanera and a guy who can rent a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything went to fucking spit after that.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be a quinceanera. It would be a sweet 16.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Quinceanera's 15. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It's the
Attila the Hun.
sentiment that's the same and the age that is different.
Yeah.
Well, one you're wearing a little pretty dress, and the other one, your rich daddy is buying you a brand new Lexus.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
And with that,
And with that, I mean, that is Attila the Hun.
Yeah, Attila the Hun. That's one you've been wanting to do for a while.
It's what I've wanted to do for a while. He was monstrous and a villain, don't get me wrong. But I think that there was more to him. I think that he was a leader of men, like a great leader. He was brutal, but like everyone of the time. And
Most people in history were villains. Let's be
yeah,
real.
I mean, let's. The thing about Attila is everything about him. He was worse than our Adolf Hitler, our Joseph Stalins, things like that. But I mean, it was sort of par for the course of the time. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
everybody was that way. It was, it's like, why is everyone wearing those wide collars and bell bottoms? It was the style of the time to conquer and murder and pillage.
yeah.
I like to think that Attila is the poor man's Genghis Khan, personally.
He was
A little
Genghis
bit.
Khan before Genghis Khan, brother.
Genghis Khan
Like I s-
before Genghis
like I
Khan.
said-
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
the
Yeah.
poor man's.
Thanks, Dan
So he's
Carlin.
Yeah.
proto-Genghis, or Genghis.
Yeah, he was the
Proto-Genghis.
hipster. He was the hipster Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate him already. Now I despise this man so much more than I did beforehand.
Do you think he
Him
looked
for
at
only
pictures
living-
of himself when he was like pillaging back in the day, like in his older years, and he was like, "We pillaged so silly back then. Look at this."
Only when he thought about him and Bleda.
Yeah,
Some real blunder years, right?
yeah.
I mean, the thing was, too, is like with Bleda, they ruled 10 years together. Like, so, like, he probably absolutely murdered Bleda, But
he killed that guy.
10 years is a long time in ancient times. I don't know. Like, I just think that there is a shadow of a doubt there. You know what I mean? I think that there's a little bit of a doubt there.
After 10 years of him fucking laughing at everything, Attila couldn't
That
take it.
Zircon was doing?
Yeah.
He's not even a
Zircon's
real
not funny.
diamond.
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking that this whole time. It's Zircon, you fool.
Yeah. I mean, there's a chance that he got real tired of Bleda, but I mean, I don't know. All I'm saying, I just vote to acquit Attila on this one charge. He may have killed one person that may have not have been killed, but all those other deaths, all those hundreds of thousands of deaths, that was on Attila. Don't get me wrong.
He killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
Maybe his brother, maybe not.
Yeah.
And then he
one
can
more.
wreck himself to death. Could we all be so lucky?
So yeah, there's Attila.
Attila the Hun.
Attila
That's a good one.
the Hun. Yeah.
I would just like to say one thing. This is totally unrelated to the show. We lost a good one this week. Huge fan of Jerry Stiller.
Yes. Yes, we did.
I don't usually bring up celebrity deaths, but and he lived a long, great life, you know.
yeah.
And it's just, you know,
95 years, yeah?
yeah. I don't know. I didn't, but I was a
Was
huge
he
fan
95?
of. I know he's around a lot longer before Seinfeld, but Frank Stanza was one of the best characters of all time.
Agreed.
So I just
Agreed
want to
for
say,
sure.
Jerry Stiller, one drink for you, buddy. That guy, he's my kind of guy.
Yeah,
Oh, big time.
that's great.
He ran Ball's Models
Yeah.
Yeah.
in
Zoolander.
Zoolander.
Yeah.
More importantly, he used to own the Fat Camp in Heavyweights.
Yes,
before he got
Oh,
bought
yeah.
out.
There you go. Yeah.
He invented the man's ear.
Yeah.
You know, Stiller Mira, he was on that. He did that thing with his wife,
Yeah.
who
Served in Korea.
who had passed a while ago. You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know a lot about his life. This isn't. In the next episode of History Boys will be the life of Jerry Stiller, not Ben Stiller.
We'll have Ben
Ben
Stiller
will
on the
be
show,
featured.
everybody. Yeah.
Ben Stiller will be on the next episode, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we
ladies
know
and
him
gentlemen,
personally.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Stiller.
Oh, hi guys.
That's a spot-on
is that
impression.
how he sounds?
No.
What?
So yeah, you know what, gang? I'm Chris Whedon. I'm a history boy.
Dope.
I'm Tyler Armentrout, and I'm 100% like dyed-in-the-wool history boy. And don't ever let anyone tell you different.
I am Zach Meck, the woman on the White Snake car, history boy.
Yep.
Nice.
Truefacts.com.
I am Jerry Nash. I am the sayer of words, history boy.
Yeah.
That's it. Again, thank you guys for listening. Please, again, if you have any recommendations, we still have some recommendations in the bank. I know some of you are waiting on recommendations. We are working on them, I promise you. But yes, send those to our email, historyboyspodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. History Boys Podcast is usually our handle. And you can reach out to us from there. I promise we will read all of your stuff, unless it's negative, and we will probably ignore it and laugh about it secretly.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's true. Love you, bye.
We had a lot of fun. We'll see you next time. Or I guess we won't, whatever.